I didn't see this one coming. Welcome into the college football show right here at the Voice of College Football. We just wrapped up with Miami Live. We wrapped up with Florida State Live back to back, and we were hit with this gem, apparently. And we will dive through the sources that indicate this is a done deal, but James Franklin is headed not to Gainesville, not to Death Valley, not to even Tallahassee or otherwise, headed to Blacksburg. Again, sources not necessarily substantiated, but we will delve into it. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Comments and questions are welcome. We've got the call-in line there. We can talk anything college football, not just necessarily James Franklin and the rumors or the substantiated confirmation. A little bit of both, it seems, at this point. I've not had the chance to really confirm this. Again, coming straight from two other shows, Miami and Florida State back-to-back. So James Franklin with the $54 million buyout. Now that needs to be determined as to how much of that he would receive from Penn State, having just taken a job, apparently, at Virginia Tech. It was my thought that James Franklin, with the facade of looking for other jobs, would do one of two things. Either he would get some kind of cushy job as an analyst somewhere and would show that he is in hot pursuit of jobs to, of course, safeguard the buyout that is very substantial. Again, $54 million, the second highest ever to Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M a few years ago at $75 million. Or he would get one of the best jobs, Florida or LSU, the current top jobs that are open, in addition to the one that he just left and was kicked out of. All right. So your thoughts about James Franklin and Virginia Tech? I think it's an amazing hire for Virginia Tech football. Virginia Tech football, much like Penn State football before James Franklin, was two football histories. There is the Virginia Tech with Frank Beamer. There is the Virginia Tech without Frank Beamer. And they are two very different Virginia Techs. Virginia Tech did nothing prior to Frank Beamer arriving in 1987. Took him a couple years to build the program, much like Bill Snyder at Kansas State. And then from the early to mid-90s, really the breakthrough in 1995 and defeating Texas in the Sugar Bowl, Virginia Tech football took off from there. 4 years later, they were inexplicably playing in a BCS national championship game against Florida State with a fourth quarter lead. And that was the pinnacle of Virginia Tech football. And they really, throughout the next 5 to 8 years, generally maintained top 10 status, and then it faltered to a certain degree under Frank Beamer, but he still was able to lead his team to bowl game after bowl game after bowl game and 7, 8, 9 win seasons. He left, and Justin Fuente, of course, took over, and he ran it into the ground, and it's not been the same since. Brent Pry was just fired after a few games this year, and his record was well under 500. And so Virginia Tech football has been brought back to the 1960s and 70s and early 80s levels under the last two head coaches. But Virginia Tech apparently is making a big stab to bring back the program to national prominence. And you got to think that James Franklin is going to be welcomed with wide open arms by the fan base, by the alumni, by the boosters, and will not have to live up to expectations of winning 10-plus games, getting to the playoffs, and defeating the likes of what I guess would be Miami and Florida State or Clemson in his new league, like he was at Penn State, where he had to be beaten down by Ohio State and Michigan most of the time. All right. Karen's in the chat. DDR's in the chat. Good to see both of you. As well as Christopher Foote. Always good to see Christopher and others. Todd, good to see you as well. Let's get to the story in particular. And again, typical rules for the college football show. You've got me for 60. You actually have me for as long as you would want me. I will stay here all night if that's what you would like. As we get to the only report I can find, there was one online as we were doing the Miami and Florida State shows. There was one online that I have since not been able to find, and it's been replaced with this one coming from, where's this coming from? I'm going to have to go back one to identify this site. It's not the most popular or well-renowned site in the history of journalism here. It's the Tech Punch Pail, the Tech Lunch Pail. Sorry about that. My eyes are failing me. The Tech Lunch Pail. And this was thrown out there 5 hours ago. At this point, this was just a coaching candidate. So I don't know if something's happened. We've seen this in the past where there have been reports that a coach is going to a particular school, i.e., Mark Stoops, Kentucky head coach, to Texas A&M. The contract was in place. Everything seemed to be lined up. And then somebody stepped in and said, no. We do not want Mark Stoops to be the head coach at Texas A&M. The fans are irate. This would not be the situation here. The Virginia Tech fan base, I believe I'm safe in saying, will be ecstatic to see James Franklin as the head coach. So nevertheless, I don't know that we're going to get the information we were looking for that was online just a few minutes ago. Now we're not seeing that same story. It's been pulled. Interesting. Unless we get it here from A to Z Sports. All right. So I don't know if we're going to find anything here that we don't already know, but according to Evan Watkins of 247 Sports, the hot name in the search for Virginia Tech's next head coach is none other than James Franklin. While this appears to be in the early stages, there is reportedly mutual interest. It's worth noting that Franklin had success at Vanderbilt before taking the job at Penn State, and then it just regurgitates his record at Penn State. Virginia Tech has not reached double-digit wins since 2016 and has not been nationally relevant since around 2011. Franklin has shown he can elevate a program to prominence and keep it there. And that's pretty much it. So we're working on fumes right now in regards to James Franklin to Virginia Tech. So let's hit the call-in line. We got our buddy Keith stopping by. Keith, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, good to talk to you. I have to agree, that's a good hire for Virginia Tech.
If, in fact, it is a hire. Like I said, when I first heard about this coming down, I was able to find 2 articles on it, and they no longer exist. And now there are just coaching candidacy type articles out there. So that was reported, and it was checked by AI. So if AI said that James Franklin is the new head coach at Virginia Tech, then we know it's got to be the case.
Yeah. Don't always believe what you hear on the internet, right?
For sure.
Yeah, but it's very possible because Franklin had a duty to mitigate. He didn't have a duty to equal, right?
Yeah, I can't verify that one way or the other.
Yeah, I heard that when he first was let go, that he had a duty to mitigate to lessen the impact of the buyout to Penn State.
Got you.
And
okay.
and
Yeah.
so if he's getting paid $9 million at Penn State and he gets $5 million at Vatech, he does fulfill the agreement to mitigate the mitigate the buyout.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, but while I was waiting for you, I was looking on the other sites. I looked at Fox Sports and ESPN, and I'm not seeing the report either of the hire.
Yeah, I can't find it anywhere other than again, we were doing the Miami show, and the guy I do the show with, Cam Underwood, said, "Wow, this is just coming down James Franklin to Virginia Tech." We didn't delve into it. Then I go to the Florida State show. We're talking about the Florida State job possibly being open, talking about James Franklin going to Florida State. And then I was searching to back this story up, and I found it in a couple locations, but the couple locations that I found it have been apparently pulled because I can't find those two links anymore. But according to AI, they're saying, according to Tech's longtime broadcaster Bill Roth, that this, I don't know who that is, but apparently Virginia Tech's play-by-play guy.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Has reported this. Franklin has agreed to a 5-year, $60 million contract. 5 years, $60 million. That's $12 million a year. I think there's only one coach in the nation making 12 plus, and that's Kirby Smart. Maybe Dabo Swinney is. That I find that kind of hard to believe. Huh.
Yeah, and it might mean a pay bump for Signetti because he's guaranteed to be number 3 in the country, and maybe that means he's going to have to get paid 12 too.
Well, Kurt Signetti is not necessarily, he's doing a remarkable job, but he's not accomplished what those two guys have. He's only been around for a year and a half. So they just bumped him up, I thought. Then the other thing that does not make sense, and again, this could be part of the issue with AI generating this information, is that it says that a press conference has been planned for Monday. Well, it's Wednesday night. That if they're close to finalizing a deal and they're not going to announce it until next Monday.
Maybe Franklin had plans for the weekend to be on TV and stuff, and he just wanted to do it on Monday. He couldn't be to Blacksburg by Monday.
I guess
that would make sense.
I don't remember any time that a head coach took a job and it took 5 days for them to get together for a news conference.
These are strange times. We never had 3 major firings in the middle of the season before either, did we?
We have, but not of this caliber of job. No.
Yeah. So it's strange times now. It's as soon as the fans turn on a coach, it seems like the administration is ready to let him go.
So you said 3 jobs. So we've got Florida, LSU, and Penn State. We also have Oklahoma State and UCLA. So we've got 5. And unless a buyout issue is going to keep Florida State from firing Mike Norvell, I would expect him to be canned, although these buyout rates drop on December 1st. So they might be looking to save a few bucks.
Yeah. Hey, while we wait for that story to firm up a little, can I dump on you about my peeps?
Sure.
All right. My Michigan peeps are just about to get me to turn off the shows. They are bitching over every little thing these days, and I know we're far from a perfect team. Michigan is. Michigan has too many flaws to count today, but
yeah. You're talking about my guys, huh?
I'm talking about your guys and other guys too, not just your guys.
Yeah.
But your guys are just as bad as anybody else. Let me just say that. So yeah, I'm having a real hard time with those guys, and I've got a comment that I'm putting out there. It says, "I love everything Michigan. I love the coaches. I love the players. I love the history. I love the culture." And rather than rip at one part of the program or a coach here or a player there. Why don't we all try to stay, keep this team together and fighting and playing together instead of dividing the thing? That's only going to be a disaster if these guys are successful and we start throwing this guy to the side and this coach to the side and everything. It's going to blow up our season worse than it is.
Well, I just think that that's a couple different philosophies of how you cover teams, whether you take the approach that I'm doing this because I'm a fan of this team. This is the only reason I started a podcast or an article or whatever you do. In this case, a podcast is because I am a fan of Michigan football. Therefore, I'm rooting for the team. Therefore, I'm going to use this platform to build up the team and support it in any way possible. Therefore, I'm going to look at this through rose-colored glasses. And we certainly have had our share of hosts here at the Voice of College Football that have taken that approach. And then you have the other approach, which is, I love Michigan football. I grew up with Michigan football. This is my team. This is what I do. But I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible. I'm still going to root. My rooting interest is not being compromised, but in terms of reporting on the team and calling it like it is, I don't want that to be compromised by my fandom. Those are just two different ways to do it. I would say that our guys typically cut it somewhere in the middle of those two things. They're blatantly rooting for Michigan and probably spin things a bit positive in terms of their support and their analysis of the team, but they are also they're trying to be objective and also call out weaknesses on the team or on the coaching staff.
Yeah, but I disagree that somebody can judge Sharon Moore as being a coach that's learning on the job. Sharon Moore knows 1,000 times more about coaching football than you and I and your two guys that do the shows, or the three guys that do the shows on a regular basis.
True.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there haven't been coaches, including Sharon Moore, that I am not qualified to criticize based on them making obvious or arguable bad decisions.
I agree with that. Yes.
But yeah, you're not going to hear me on here on a regular basis questioning play calling or calling out offensive schemes or play calling, trying to pretend to know more than, let's say, an offensive coordinator for a major college football team.
And I give you credit for that. And that's why I'm dumping on you rather than on them.
Now, I will say the last Michigan play call that I had something to say about was when they threw that little pitch pass to Samaj Morgan, who has trouble catching a cold in the middle of winter, on a 4th and 1 play. I just didn't think that that was the smartest thing to do. And he, of course, dropped the football.
Yes.
I did mention that.
And I've liked Samaj Morgan for, I believe 3 years. It might be 2 years. I don't keep track of it, but, I've always liked Samaj Morgan, and when he dropped that 4th and 1 pass, boy, I felt bad for him, and I felt bad for us, and I just knew he was going to get railed over that, and it was, to me, it was a good call because if he catches it, he easily makes the first down. So
that's the problem. This is why I criticize the call, Keith. If you're Sharon Moore, and then obviously we'll bring Chip Lindsey into it as well as the offensive coordinator, that if you're calling the play, then let's say you have all the faith in the world, even though nobody in the Michigan fan base seems to at this point, other than yourself and some others, have faith in Samaj Morgan. But let's say you're one of those people. You coach the guy every day. You see him on the practice field, and you believe in his talent, his ability, his work ethic, that he is going to turn out to be a good player and be dependable. I think you do things, and we've seen it all over the place. Guys lose their confidence and they have to be coached back into it.
Yep.
But you throw that on 2nd and 2 or 1st and 10, and then if he drops it, you play another down. You don't do it on 4th and 1 of a tie game against a good opponent, because if he drops the ball like he did and has been prone to do, then you just screwed up a drive. That's why you don't do it then.
Oh, that's a good point. I'll relent on that then. Yeah, that would have been, like you say, that would have been a better call on a 2nd and 2 or a 3rd and 3 play. Yeah. But I'm seeing guys, and guy that's not your guy, Devin Gardner, when he's doing his new thing with Jake Butt, has got, and they're just allowed to get pictures. Another thing with your guys is if they're hypercritical like they are, they don't realize it, but they might be blowing their chance to grow into the next Sam Webb, because Sam Webb is let into practices during spring training or during a fall camp.
Yep.
So he's established a rapport with that. And Sam Webb does criticize at points, but he does it gently and from a team perspective, just like Moore does. Moore just criticized Samaj Morgan, saying he has to improve. And I didn't see the full article, what he said, but when we criticize our guys, we should be doing it in a gentle and positive nature for our own good. I would like to see your guys grow to a Sam Webb where they get invited to practices and can see more inside stuff.
Well, certainly I would like that. That's something that we've tried to get to that level with a number of these channels, to be able to do that. And we've not been able to break through on that. About the closest thing we've been able to do is get to Big Ten Media Days a few years in a row. But yeah, other than that, yeah, that would be phenomenal. Yes.
Yes. But Devin Gardner, and like I say, they're allowed to look at still pictures and
Yep.
annotate still pictures on their thing. But they were showing a still picture, and this is being overly critical, is what I'm trying to say, is that they showed a picture of, it was a goal line pick play, where Samaj and another receiver were supposed to pick these two guys, and McCulley was supposed to break free. And they were criticizing Samaj because the play failed. But in the next picture, you can see Samaj and the other receiver were right in the mess, and they exactly picked them. And if Underwood would have made the pass to McCulley at that point, you see him a step past that scrum right there. It kind of looked like a rugby scrum. If he was a step past that, if he would have fired that ball to McCulley right there, it would have been a touchdown. But you see in that picture too is that Samaj sees that it's a mess in there and that it's open towards the back of the end zone, and so he breaks on his own. It looks like he's breaking to his own, and Underwood overthrows Samaj. So Underwood is struggling learning the offense right now, and that's what you get when you get a freshman quarterback. He's very talented, and there's signs of brilliance and greatness in him, but it's like he makes two mistakes for every good play that he makes. So this is being overcritical of Samaj. He actually did what he was supposed to do there, and he wasn't the problem in that play. Samaj was also open for that touchdown. If Underwood would have hit him right, he would have had the first score of the game there.
Yes, I got you. I don't know what play you're talking about exactly, but granted, if he would have caught the football,
if he would have caught, yeah, that's right. If he would have caught the football, yeah, which I mean, he catches over half the balls that are thrown to him.
Sure. sure.
It's just that the balls that you miss, that really hurts. When you hit a guy in the hands and he doesn't catch it, that really hurts a drive.
Well, the thing about Bryce Underwood that people need to remember, and this goes for all of us actually, is that improvement does not come in a straight trajectory up. And so maybe some of his issues against Michigan State, I even got caught, not that I publicly or here criticize Bryce Underwood because I didn't, but I was taken back by him having a bad game. And then again, when you pull back from it, you understand that in any development in life, in learning a skill set and trying to improve, yeah, you don't progress in a straight line. You take 3 or 4 steps forward, then you take a step or 2 back, and you have regression points, and then you get better and regroup and go forward. But I was on the Michigan podcast with Steve Dace this week, and it was just funny to be met with his optimism of this team. And what I was trying to express to Steve was that they played pretty methodical games against Michigan State and Wisconsin, games that are difficult for me to judge whether they just, I don't want to say went through the motions, but they called a conservative game plan, and they just knew that they were physically superior, so that they just rode home with a fairly easy 2-score win in both cases. Or is this a team that's really not as good as they should be and not developing to the point, because they should stomp these teams? Wisconsin and Michigan State are near the bottom of the Big Ten. But they did play the really good game in between against Washington. And Steve Dace is suddenly optimistic about Michigan football and took kind of a different tenor on this season. And I was kidding him that it's more about the situation than it is the team that he's optimistic about. He sees Purdue and whomever else they've got in front of them that they're going to be heavy favorites against the last few games of the season. Maryland's one of the games before they play Ohio State. And yeah, they're sitting right about where I expected them to be, and they're pretty much the football team that I expected them to be as well.
Yeah, and I saw you and Steve on the podcast, and when you weren't on, though, Steve was really ripping on different players and different coaches in Michigan, and he was awful negative when you weren't there, and yeah, it was like a Jekyll and Hyde in that podcast. It was kind of strange that way.
Okay. I did not see that.
Oh, you didn't see what he was saying before? Yeah.
No, I never
But
see that.
it might also be that he did it on the different podcasts that you weren't there, and I don't know if he does a podcast without you, um, but he's been awful negative. And Steve is the smartest guy as I've ever met. I think he's a real smart guy. But
Absolutely.
a lot of these Michigan guys and alums that I share education with, they seem to be awful emotional, and Steve is that way. And he was talking about something like he quits on Michigan every game that the other team scores first. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty quick judgment. That's
Yeah.
very emotional.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, that's yeah, I'd like to see Franklin get a good job. I think Franklin's a good coach. I think um some coaches commit to quarterbacks like he did to Drew Allar, and I think Drew Allar's just never going to be a good quarterback at any level. And he's a great quarterback for a high school quarterback, but he's just not making it in college. And I told somebody, if you gave James Franklin on his Penn State teams Joe Burrow, Lamar Chase, and John Jefferson, he would have won 2 or 3 championships.
Yeah. So would a lot of teams.
So would have a lot of teams. But I'm saying that Franklin's a good enough coach. If he gets the right quarterback and another couple of skill players, he's going to be all right.
The issue I have with that take, Keith, is that he's responsible for that.
Yes, he is.
He recruits the quarterbacks. He recruits every player on that roster. Now,
Right.
the issue is if a particular coach that we might be evaluating is at a place like Northwestern or Minnesota, then we have to kind of pull back and say, well, he doesn't have the resources, doesn't have the pocketbook and everything involved, and the tradition and the brand name and all the stuff that lures these kids, the NFL factory. But at Penn State, if Drew Aller did not get developed in 3 years as the starting quarterback at Penn State, that's partially James Franklin's fault. It's definitely his responsibility.
His responsibility to develop, yes, and the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, yes. Sure. But it is also his responsibility. I think I saw the ceiling of Drew Aller as a sophomore.
Okay.
And they just were not going to go very far with Drew Aller.
Then why? My counterpoint to that is then in the old era before NIL and the transfer portal, then you would make a decision to say, okay, well, unless we go out and sign the next Trevor Lawrence or Bryce Young, we're stuck with Drew Aller, and he's a decent college quarterback, so he's going to be our quarterback for the next 3 years, and that's what it is. Because, as you well know, 5 to 10 plus years ago, we could look at any college football team and look at the quarterback room at any point, and we could pretty much line up the way it's going to look for the next 2 to 4 years. This guy's the starter now, but he's got 1 year left. And then they've got this hotshot 5-star, but he's only a freshman. So they got this other guy. He's a sophomore, and he's rounding into shape. So he's probably going to take the reins after that, but they'll probably have a quarterback battle. You could pretty much see the way things were going to play out for the next 3 to 4 years. But now everybody goes out. When I say everybody, obviously I don't literally mean everybody, but scads of teams are out there going out and getting a new quarterback. They don't like their quarterback situation. They don't trust their incoming freshman to take over immediately. They go out and get a quarterback. All we would have to do is go through the Big Ten, and the majority of starting quarterbacks in the Big Ten are transfers. So James Franklin made the decision that Drew Aller is the starting quarterback at Penn State, and he wasn't going to go out and try to get a better quarterback.
Yep. Bad on him. I agree with you. Bad on him. Yep.
And I'm not saying that was a horrible decision, and I'm not saying that was an easy decision, because for as much as we pick on Drew Aller, and in many cases rightfully so, there are only so many guys out there that you could bring in and know that that particular player was going to be a better quarterback than Drew Aller. So I'm criticizing on one hand, but I'm also understanding that it's easier for me to sit here and say that he needed to fix that than the opportunity to go out and get somebody better than Drew Aller.
Sure. And you can say that in 23 and 24, they won 22 games with Drew Aller. And that's on the positive side. But on the negative side, if you look at their record against top 5 teams, those 2 years, sure, it's 0 and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised, Keith, if Drew Aller is earning a paycheck in the NFL for a substantial period of time.
If he was, Penn State would not be in the mess they were right now. And they would have won the championship one of the last 2 years if Drew Aller was a pro quarterback, even a backup. I think Penn State would have been a lot better.
I'm not saying that Drew Aller is going to be Joe Burrow in the NFL. I'm saying that he's going to earn a paycheck in the NFL.
And I'm saying I don't think so. I think that he's when he gets to the NFL, he's gonna get washed out real quick. I just believe that.
Okay.
All right.
This is you can put me on record in this. I've had much bolder predictions because I'm not an NFL talent scout. I'm going to guess that Drew Aller has at least a 5-year career in the NFL.
All right. All right. Well, I'll bet you $1 on that.
All righty. Well, Keith, call back anytime, sir.
All right. Good talking to you, Mark.
Thanks, man. Always like to hear from Keith. And again, I am not putting my reputation on the line for Drew Aller by any stretch. So if he continues the downward descent, and of course he just got hurt, which we all wish him the best in his recovery and hope that he's full bore, full ready to go come post NFL draft pre NFL draft, actually. That's another thing. It's not actually a priority of mine to determine Drew Aller's health, but post January 1st, we're going to be looking at tryouts and we're going to be looking at combines, not the combine, which is, of course, in Indianapolis in March, but we're going to be looking at, workouts and the Senior Bowl and all those sorts of things that Drew Aller would have taken part in. And it doesn't appear as though he's going to be ready to do that. So Joe is asking, what round is Drew Aller going to be drafted? Again, I'm not an NFL draft guy. I do love the NFL draft. And I have absorbed as much NFL draft as I'm sure anybody listening here, but I'm not like a guy that prepares for the NFL draft. I have other friends that do that. They prepare for the NFL draft. I just watch the NFL draft. 5th round, we'll throw that out there. Got DeReal MVP stopping by. DeReal, what's going on?
Oh, man, Mark, if this is true, if this is true, what a home run grand slam hire by the Hokies of Virginia Tech.
Yes.
I mean, you want to talk about crushing it at a level I haven't seen in years. This might be the best coaching hire on paper in a long time, like a very long time.
I did not expect that. I did not consider him for... I know that I mentioned him for the job, but more not in jest, but basically saying, Virginia Tech's open, and I don't see James Franklin dropping his expectations to that level. I see him sitting out, waiting for a better job, but obviously with the flood of big-time jobs available, that he would be able to snatch one of the other ones.
Well, right. If this is true, I think the reason he took it is the path to the college football playoff every single year is significantly easier than in the Big Ten. That would be the main reason he would take it. Would you agree with that analysis?
Sure. Absolutely. Virginia Tech seems like a bad program. It seems like...
Well, it is a bad program.
It is a bad program right now. But... that place, I just saw the statistic here recently. They are 3rd in the ACC in attendance for as bad as they are. They have been ever since they've been bad. They are still 3rd to Florida State and Clemson in the ACC in attendance. They still pack that stadium. They still have support. I don't know that they've got crazy amounts of money to be throwing at NIL. They're not Clemson or Florida State from that standpoint, but they support the football program, and they obviously, if they're going after James Franklin and throwing this kind of money at him, I'm sure that he was on the other side of that table saying, or that Zoom call saying, okay, what do we look like in terms of pursuing excellent football players in the transfer portal and luring them to campus as high school or college freshmen as well? So he's obviously, I would assume, setting himself up for success. And that's in a conference where we see what a dumpster fire Florida State's been, and Miami has never been able to turn it around. This may be the season, but we've been waiting for that forever. And now Clemson is just kind of like everyone else. So this conference is up for grabs, and this program has won at a high level.
Right. If this is true, again, if it's true, he instantly becomes far and away the best coach in the ACC. And he'll probably have the 2nd or 3rd most talented roster at worst every single year. He's got no real competition within these states alongside him. Like Virginia's not really a rival. Virginia's not really competitive. North Carolina, Duke, Wake Forest, NC State, they're not competitive. So he's basically just staked out his own land grab and saying, hey, all this area is mine now, is what he's done. So I understand why he would make this move if he was to make this move. But I do have to give some criticism to him and say, man, you ran away from the SEC and Big Ten? What a coward, Mark. What a coward to run away. You couldn't win, so you ran away. What a coward move. You know, the last head coach to do that was Lincoln Riley, and he's turned out to be a failure. What a coward.
I'm surprised at how bullish you are on this hire. I'm bullish on it too, but I'm just surprised how...
Mark, I'm not bullish on it because James Franklin is a good to great coach. Look at the ACC. It's a dumpster fire. As long as you're semi-competent, decent, you'll go 9-3, 10-2 every single year.
Well, I'm also surprised that you're calling him by far the best coach in the conference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his only competition is Mario Cristobal, who screws up every late game situation, and Jeff Brom of Louisville, who's a good coach.
There's a coach at Clemson who's done fairly well.
Oh, you mean that guy that was in a bygone, foregone era, pre-transfer era, portal era dinosaur? Dabo Swinney is like the land phone. How everybody had one of those phones that connected on your wall, and everybody had to have one of them. But then as soon as the cell phone came out, that land phone just went extinct. That's what Dabo Swinney is. He's an era of the past.
Possibly.
I mean, it's year 5 or 6 of this.
But he was still leading the best program in the conference for those other seasons.
Well, some of them.
Overall. So since Clemson has not been Clemson, championship level Clemson, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence Clemson, they still are by far the best program in the ACC from 2021 through now.
Yeah,
and
but it's only because
about a year after that.
It's only because 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 they've been going downhill.
Yes.
Their trajectory is down, and they're not doing anything to change it. So until they do something to change it, i.e. go into the transfer portal and actually get some players, then I'm not going to believe in them.
Dabo slow to the transfer portal. That's an understatement. But they did bring in some guys this year, and he has publicly stated that he sees it as a complimentary piece, and he will be using the transfer portal.
Well, good. He can listen. I need to see action from him. Listen, this is to me exactly like the Lincoln Riley. He's going to have a great defense this year. Every year for the last 8 years, I've been told, man, he's focusing on defense. He's putting more preparation in defense. He's really emphasizing in Nebraska's. What happens? They'll play Nevada and give up 28 points. I'm sorry, I got to see it. That's where I'm at with Dabo Clemson, with the transfer portal, and Lincoln Riley with the defense. I need to see it before I can believe it.
DeReal, if you see the poll that I've posted here, this was in honor of you because I do think that you cited an interesting question here about the number of participants to the college football playoff from each conference. So that's where it stands right now with a little over 300 votes cast, and the number 5 and or 6 or more receiving just 18% of the vote for the SEC.
82% of people are going to be in shambles. That's all I'm going to say, Mark. 82% of people are going to be in shambles.
And the way you laid it out for us last night, and we carved through it pretty well, I would have to agree. I just see that the Big Ten's going to have a difficult time unless we get that scenario we talked about in the ACC where everyone runs the table. And the key to that will be the Georgia Tech game.
Right.
If Georgia Tech can beat Georgia, then they give that conference, they're a lock, and they give a little cachet to that conference. Now, there's no connecting pieces to that win because nobody in that equation in the ACC played Georgia Tech. So it's not like somebody can say, well, we stayed within a field goal of Georgia Tech and they just beat Georgia. So there's no connecting spots there. But that would be significant, obviously, for the ACC. And aside from that scenario, you're right about the Big Ten being in a predicament and really needing Oregon to pull through to get that third team, let alone a fourth team.
Right. Minimum for Big Ten is 2. Maximum is 3. That's where they're at. You don't like it? Win games. Just win games. They didn't do that. Mark, I saw a Dr. David Buckeye wanted to join this call. Can we get a doctor's opinion on this?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me make one more comment because Nebraska, and this is another thing where you kind of pushed me in this direction. And then I looked at and made this comment on a few different shows that middle portion of the Big Ten that's vying for a playoff spot, meaning Iowa, USC, and Michigan in particular. Washington's there. Didn't really play a power non-conference. They played Washington State, whoop-de-doo. And obviously the one team that did win. So I was making the contrast that Iowa, Michigan, and USC blew their non-conference, their big non-conference tests. And that would have given this a completely different spin if they win against Notre Dame, Iowa State, and Oklahoma versus what happened. And Nebraska, though, if Cincinnati can continue to win, and I don't think they're going to win the Big 12, but they're obviously they have fate in their hands. They can win the Big 12. Then, of course, that polishes up Nebraska's resume.
Yeah, I just don't believe in Nebraska flatly enough to do that. I just don't think they're a good I know they're not a good football team. Any football team that loses to Minnesota by 3 touchdowns is not a good football team. Here's also the problem for the Big Ten getting 4 in. Here's Oregon's remaining schedule, Mark, okay? Iowa, Minnesota, USC, Washington. They play everyone else who's in contention again in the playoffs.
Iowa's on the road. Is there another game on the road? There should be.
Washington.
Okay.
So they play everyone else who's in contention. So if they beat them, that team is out. And if Oregon loses, they're out.
Yeah. Yeah, it would just be best for the Big Ten, just for Oregon to be extremely strong and be an 11-1 team going to the playoffs and have 3 monster seeds in the playoff. That could be like 1, 2, and 5 or something like that.
Yeah. Can we get Dr. David Buckeye?
Yeah, we got now we're on a we're on a 10-minute time limit here.
What's your post-mortem assessment, Dr. Buckeye of the Big Ten?
Well, I would say this. First of all, I think USC and Oregon is a play-in game. I think most people would agree with that.
I'm sorry, guys. Before we get this conversation heated up, because again, we don't have much time, and I do have 2 super chats. Let me read these super chats,
okay,
and then we'll get to this. So we've got Adam, who says, "Mark, James Franklin has no class."
Wow.
Beamer ball is dead. Virginia Tech has been mediocre for years, and Franklin will stay true to form and never defeat top teams. He should hire Drew Allar as the quarterback coach. Interesting. Very nice, Adam. And Adam follows up with this one. Thank you for the contribution, sir. Franklin should have gone to Rutgers, where he would have recruited far better. I predict he will hire Deacon Hill as the quarterback whisperer. Chef? Yes. Drew Allar is the offensive coordinator and some random guy named Ivan as the DC. Well done, Adam. All right. Now on to the Big Ten SEC college football playoff discussion.
So I think we can agree that USC and Oregon is a play-in game, basically. Is that what I think that's basically what Darrell is saying, correct?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that USC at 10-2 probably doesn't get in the playoffs. I took a deeper analysis into it. 10-2, they're behind Notre Dame, which is probably going to be behind the ACC Miami. They're behind Miami at a minimum. Would you agree with that? Since they lost the game.
Hold on a second, though. But we're talking about a USC team that would be 10-2 with a top 15 win and then probably a top 10 win. Okay, I mean, in the Big Ten, that's not all bad. I mean,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't.
but they lost to the team they're directly compared to with the same record in Notre Dame.
Well, I think that there's a path to where, okay. So what we're saying, all right, let's break it down all 12 here. Now, are you of the opinion that the ACC will get 2 teams or no?
I think that is most likely, yes.
Okay, so we're
I
going to
hate
say
saying that. I had a visceral reaction just now.
Okay. So,
So,
David, before we
yes.
move on, you agree with that? Does that seem reasonable? 2 from the ACC?
Yes, I'm going to go 2 from the ACC. I think Tech and Miami are the 2.
But you've heard my breakdown of the conundrum with 4 teams from the ACC.
I have heard your conundrum. I believe the ACC is going to have 2 at the end. I think we're going to be looking at 2 teams in the ACC get in.
And you're arriving at that conclusion just because you don't believe that these teams are strong enough to hold serve all the way through.
That's correct. I think there's a lot of flawed teams, and I think it's debatable. I actually think more of a case can be made that only one ACC team gets in, but I'm going to lean towards 2 get in because I think there's a lot of flawed teams in the ACC.
So just take a shot at which 2 of these teams are going to make it, or one team.
I was buying Miami wasn't fraudulent until Louisville went in there and Carson Beck reverted into Georgia Carson Beck. But I was actually going to have a Georgia Tech discussion with you too to see how legitimate they are. I would say right now the 2 most highly ranked teams are the 2 teams I'm leaning towards, which would be Miami and Georgia Tech.
I think that's a fair assumption. I mean, I think Georgia Tech, every team in college football has the going to get screwed label. They're going to be 11-0, and they might finish 11-2 and get eliminated.
Yes.
But there's a chance it's Georgia Tech, Virginia in the ACC title game, Louisville, Virginia. So I think it's just safe to assume 2 gets in.
Virginia not only is undefeated in the conference, and still they've got 4 games to play, but
Yes.
they've got the head-to-head against Louisville. And who's to say, I don't think we can at this point, who would win the tiebreaker between Virginia and Miami, or Virginia, Louisville, and Miami. So we're counting out Virginia because we expect them to lose, but they may need to lose 2 games.
Okay.
Right.
Fair enough. I mean, I think right now, I still think with the rest of Miami's schedule, they can go 11-1.
Yeah, and that still might not be good enough to make the ACC title game. Finishing 7-1 in the ACC. That's my problem.
Yeah,
is they might get completely blocked out.
Yeah, but Miami would then still have in their back pocket a top 10 win with Notre Dame.
Right, they might be selected as an at-large team over the loser of the ACC championship game. So, let's say Virginia beats Georgia Tech, Miami gets selected, and over Georgia Tech, that's still 2 ACC teams. So I think just saying 2 ACC teams is the simplest path going forward.
Okay, so between the 2 of you, we got 2 from the ACC. Are we going to agree on that?
Yes.
I think we're in simpatico on that.
And it's going to be Miami and Georgia Tech.
That's what I'm leaning towards. Darrell, you
that's with fine. That works.
Okay, I'm heavily rooting for Virginia, but go ahead.
Okay, so I personally think right now I would say with the Big Ten. See,
can we do the Big 12 and G5?
Exactly.
Just say one each.
Big 12, Big 12 and G5 one each. If you just want to take that off the board, and then I think Notre Dame gets us to 5.
But we've got a lot of issues here, David. Though with the Big 12, possibly Texas Tech runs the table, and BYU only has 1 loss.
Well, Texas Tech plays BYU.
Oh, that's right. They play in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't see a world where the Big 12's getting 2 teams, Mark. I got to be real with you.
Okay. All right. 1 for the Big 12.
All right. So you got 2 ACC, we got 1 Big 12, non-Power 5, and then Notre Dame would get me to 5.
Yes.
I'm putting Notre Dame on the bubble for me. I'm not sure about Notre Dame.
Notre Dame and a G5, 2, 4, 5. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go to the SEC.
I am of the belief that the SEC right now would get 4.
Okay. Are they the top 4 that we see there?
I said Alabama, Texas A&M, I believe Ole Miss, and I am on the bubble. I'm still kind of on the bubble with Georgia. I think Oklahoma's lost this weekend. Oklahoma couldn't afford to lose that game. They're done. I think right now I would lean Ole Miss, Alabama, and Texas A&M as the 3 teams from the SEC that I believe will get in. After that, I think that there is some debate. I could see a world where Georgia, Darrell doesn't want to hear that. I think Georgia Tech could beat Georgia. You go out and laugh, Darrell.
Listen, if that happens, that changes the calculus. But you understand Georgia is probably going to be significant favorites against Georgia Tech, right?
They were last year, too, and they took them 8 overtimes to win the game. I think that's highly likely. I think that's 30-35% chance. Okay, Darrell, you're going to be much better at this, and you've got more stake in the game, so you take on the SEC case.
Okay, the SEC case is because of how deep the conference is, even if we just, let's say, eliminate Georgia. All Tennessee has to go is 10-2, and they're probably in the playoffs. And they would have to go 10-2 by just winning out, beating Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has to split Texas and Tennessee to get in, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're 10-2.
Right.
You get a 10-2 SEC team's getting in. Do we agree with that?
Okay, go ahead.
So if Vanderbilt beats Texas this week, they're a lock. Because they're not losing their they play 2 cream puffed SEC teams, like horrendous SEC teams.
Well, see, that's why I don't see that happening. I think Texas beats Vanderbilt this weekend.
Okay. Do you think Texas could beat Vanderbilt could beat Tennessee?
I think that's closer to a pick 'em.
Well, here's the problem. Let's look at Tennessee's football schedule, okay?
Yeah.
Tennessee plays
right now.
They got Oklahoma, New Mexico State, Florida, and Vanderbilt.
Right.
Their only real contentious game is Oklahoma outside of that Vanderbilt game.
Yes.
So the way to avoid both Vanderbilt and Tennessee missing the playoffs is you need Texas to beat Vanderbilt this week and then Vanderbilt to beat Tennessee at the end of the season. What's the likelihood of both those games going your way?
Well, see, well, first of all, Tennessee already has 2 losses. I see Tennessee going 9-3. However, they're going to get there. I think they're going to get there.
Right. If they do go 9-3, they're probably out because they're
forget them. Yeah.
Just to remind you guys, the best way to approach this is to, even though Darrell probably doesn't want to do this, the best way to do it is draw up the worst case scenario for the SEC. That's reasonable. Because everyone's trying to shoot down their playoff prospects. So
worst case scenario, I guess, would be the Georgia Tech Georgia game.
Okay.
That's the worst case scenario that's realistic. And then the SEC would still, in that scenario, get Ole Miss, Alabama.
Because Georgia has, if they lose to Georgia Tech, they also have Florida, Mississippi State, Texas. So that's only going to be a second loss for Georgia.
Right. They would have to lose that Texas game as well in order to be out.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah. That's the one that I see. I could see Texas losing or beating Vanderbilt, but Texas getting knocked out by losing to Texas A&M.
But if they're 9-3, they're getting into the college football playoff.
Who is?
Texas.
We sure about that?
I'm pretty sure Texas is getting into the college football playoff at 9-3.
So bottom line, Darrell is saying he is taking 9-3 Texas over 10-2 Notre Dame.
Yes.
Mark, how you feel about that? Chime in. What you got?
The 3-loss Texas team lost to Ohio State, Florida, and who?
Texas A&M.
Okay, they would have wins over Vanderbilt, Georgia, and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Notre Dame would have a victory over USC. Okay, got it. and their only loss would be the same as Texas's only loss, which was to Texas A&M, and then they would have lost to I believe a top 10 team on their field by 3 points, and they have a better record.
Yeah, the wins are definitely in Texas's column, and that Florida loss is a bad one.
Yeah, the Florida loss, I think, would hurt them to real, and that kicks them up to 3 losses. That's why I think I might sway that to Notre Dame. Just saying.
Maybe.
I think so too. I think the committee would take Notre Dame over Texas under those circumstances.
I think it also finishes how good Oklahoma does at 9-3.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma lost their any chance at a play. I think that was could have been kind of an elimination game last week for both of those teams, that Ole Miss Oklahoma game.
And we have Texas with a win against Texas A&M.
No, I said that's going to be their third loss and
Okay.
going to be their crusher, Mark.
Lost to Texas A&M. So they lost to maybe the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country.
Well, to the top 4 or 5, yeah. Yep. I mean, and Notre Dame's loss is the same, loss by 1 point on their field.
One of them, yes.
Yeah, and their only other loss was to a top 10 team on the on the road.
And Texas lost by 1 score to what might be the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, because Notre Dame's losses aren't going to look all that bad either, Mark.
Especially
if Miami runs if there's a world where Miami goes 11-1, wins the ACC, then Miami's going to be like a top 5-6 team.
Texas right, but what is also the likelihood Texas A&M is going to be 13-0 SEC champions? I don't think that's extremely high scenario.
Okay, all right. No, I mean, I could see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, Texas is going to have 2 losses that are arguably the same as Notre Dame's, but slightly better with Ohio State in the mix, but have the Florida loss tacked onto it. But then Texas has much better wins than Notre Dame.
And they also got that key road win that Notre Dame will not have at Georgia. I mean, it is a road win against a top 5 team.
See, you know what helps Notre Dame's look a little bit better is if USC goes to Oregon and wins, and then Miami kind of charges on and wins the ACC. Then Notre Dame's not looking that bad, because
Miami's in a difficult spot to win the ACC.
Yeah, Miami's not winning the ACC, David.
They're in a tough spot.
Okay, I think there's some things that could still break that could help them out there.
Oh, of course. They need Louisville to lose. They need Georgia Tech to lose or Virginia to lose.
They need Virginia to lose twice because the third tiebreaker, according to the ACC, is common opponents. Yeah. And Virginia is going to have that tiebreaker over Miami.
Yeah.
See, Mark, sounds like you're swaying on that 9-3 Texas versus 10-2 Notre Dame.
Oh, I stated it pretty plainly that I think the committee would side with Notre Dame, but I certainly would not. I won't be on here ranting and raving about the committee making a mistake one way or the other, because Texas does have a better schedule and better wins than Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got a flimsy list of wins.
Yeah, their second best win is what? Boise State?
Yeah, it's a little bit weaker. It's probably, that could be it. I mean, if you look at the rest of their schedule, it's not. Yeah, I was pulling it up as we spoke.
Yeah, I think it's Boise State and Arkansas.
Yeah, they're just hoping that the USC win, maybe carries a little bit of merit for them at the end of the year. But yeah, Stanford, Pitt, Navy, Boston College, Syracuse. Yeah, that's.
Navy's probably the best team that they play for the remainder of the year.
So if Notre Dame makes it, David, and the SEC or the Big Ten gets 3, then that leaves 4 spots for the SEC.
That's what I was saying. I'm borderline 4 or 5 for the SEC. I can't go where what Darrell was saying was 6. I can't go there. I don't see that happening.
Well, 6 is still possible 5. If we were talking worst case scenario when we got to 4. I mean, there's still some SEC teams that we haven't talked about that could potentially win out that we don't think could, that would make it to where 6 is possible. Like if LSU wins out at 9-3, they would have wins over Alabama and Texas A&M. Yeah. They're on the bubble.
They're in disarray though right now.
I know. I don't think it's likely, but they're still in the picture. as of right now. If
David,
Oklahoma, sorry,
Go
I
ahead,
was
Mark.
just going to say, David, if Oregon loses, the Big Ten's in trouble.
Well, see, I think that I think that's close to a playing game, Mark. I think USC, if they have a top 10 win and a top 15 win and go 10-2, and I realize Illinois is kind of a whatever loss. I get it. I mean, it's not the worst loss ever, but and then their other loss would be by 10 points to a legit top 8 to 10 team in the country on their field.
yeah, but the problem is you're getting 12. You're saying you're a top 8 to 10 teams. There's only 11 teams that are at the at-large spot.
No, I hear you. I think if USC wins out of Oregon, I think you can make a case that they're right at 11
Okay.
at that point.
USC beat Oregon under the scenario, and they beat who else?
Well, they beat Michigan, so that would be a top 15 win, let's say, and that would be basically a top 10, top 15 win, and their loss would be to, let's say, a top 8, top 9 team. I agree. Illinois is maybe a 7-5, 8-4 football team, and there you go. They're going to regret that losing on that heartbreaker to Illinois, because that really, I mean.
Versus any SEC team that we're talking about, aside from Texas losing to Florida, would have better losses than losing at Illinois.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also, I was going to say, we got some other team, Missouri. Nobody's talking about them. They're still only lost 2 games.
Yeah.
Alabama by 3, Vanderbilt by 7. They played Texas A&M and Oklahoma. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I could see a world where that's plausible, but right now I'm borderline 4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, but I think that USC has a decent case if they win at Oregon. I mean, I think that's 2 pretty solid wins, but I think they're, like I said, that loss at Illinois, I think, is something that could be, if they're right on that cusp, is they're really going to regret.
Right. The issue I have with the Big Ten argument is this: is that your argument is really hinging on 1 or 2 teams. Where I'm able to go 5 or 6 teams deep into the chamber and be like, well, if this team loses this team can win this game, and then if they both lose, this third team can win. And it's like you basically have to have a perfect season for here on out to get 4, and maybe even 3.
Right. Well, right now, legitimately, what you have is, I think right now, 5 teams in the Big Ten kind of playing for chances to get in. And you have more than that in the SEC. I mean, nobody's going to say Iowa. I'm not even going to say Iowa as a Big Ten person. But
why don't they have as good a shot as USC?
Okay, are you going to say that Iowa would have as good a wins as Michigan and at Oregon?
I mean, they would play Oregon and USC in the next 2 games. So,
well, okay, right. I mean, yeah, I'm just expecting them to not. I'm sorry, probably.
No,
not.
You're fine. And they would have only lost to Indiana by 5 points. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Iowa gave Indiana its toughest test of the season by far. It's not even close.
That's true.
And they lost Iowa State on a last-second field goal. Iowa State's probably going to be an 8-4 team.
I'm a diehard Big Ten fan. I don't want to see Iowa in the play.
I don't know that Iowa's not better than USC. I don't know that USC would only lose to Indiana in the last 90 seconds of the game.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I get it, Mark. They played a team tough. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah,
they're not like old Iowa. They've actually got a legitimate offense this year that can move the ball. They're not horrible.
David, if you were listening today, I think I pointed this out on the Ohio State show. Iowa has outscored every other team that is 6-2 in the Big Ten. They've scored more points than all of those teams.
See, yeah, it is. Their offense has gotten better. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I just.
They have the number 2 defense in the country right now.
I agree. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. If you're going to tell me that Iowa beats Oregon and then USC, then there's no doubt they make the playoff. I think at that point, they probably get in at that point.
Maybe.
Well, but I mean if you go back to back, because those games are also back to back. I think the USC game on the road.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's at USC. So yeah.
But USC probably. I mean, they're borderline.
See,
they're going to finish probably 8-4, if they lose to Iowa? Like, is that all that impressive of a win?
I hear you. I'm debating on whether we're overrating Oregon a little bit this year. You know what I mean? I'm still, and I don't want to take anything away from Indiana's great win there, but
Yeah, I mean, if Oregon, we're going to figure out if they're the third best team in the Big Ten here in the next 4 weeks. They play everyone else that's legitimately in the playoff race.
yeah.
So the Big Ten is in a way going to sort itself out and filter itself out, whereas the SEC doesn't have that many opportunities to filter itself out remaining.
One last comment before I go. I know we're probably running long here, Mark, but to your original point on the Franklin discussion, I just want to chime in real quick on that. I think it makes sense for Franklin to drop down to a lower tier, kind of take a mid-tier kind of job, kind of go back, because, he did a decent job at Vandy, which is why he got the Penn State job to begin with. Although, can I say this? When he was winning games at Vandy, wasn't that aspect of the SEC or that side of the SEC was down over that particular period of time, if I'm not mistaken?
Tennessee was down, Florida was down. Yes.
Yeah, Kentucky was down, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kentucky was down even.
Yeah. Hey, I gave you credit last night, Darrell, for shout out to 07 Kentucky for beating the national champion that year.
Probably our best win this millennium.
All right, David.
Okay.
You need to stay on for this super chat read because you're getting scolded here.
Okay.
Erica's in the chat. Erica is in the chat.
I'm in trouble now.
She said, I am so tired of this bias against Iowa. We got a new offensive coordinator and a solid running quarterback. We've been a lot better. Yeah. We might beat Oregon next game. That would not surprise me at all if they beat Oregon. Not surprise me at all.
Well, if you notice, I did say I'm wondering if Oregon is a little bit fraudulent this year. That's why I did kind of preface my remarks with that. I'm wondering if they're a little bit overrated.
Right, but they're only ranked 6th because of preseason expectations and that Penn State win, which turns out not to be as good as we thought it was.
Or the game that we're going to call it the game that ended James Franklin's career.
That's fine, but they're still not. They haven't proven anything this point in the season, and they'll have their opportunity to prove a lot over the last 4 weeks of the season.
So it's going to be interesting. Mark, I know you're hoping for the chaos at the end of the year, as you are wont to do.
Oh man, I want that ACC scenario. If I could have anything, that's what I want. I want all 4 of those teams with 1 loss.
Yeah, I could see that. I
want a lineup of 10-2 SEC teams. Just a lineup, like 7 of them.
Well, there's a world where that's happening, you know what I mean? And then we have the controversy, and then you throw in, you maybe 3 Big Ten teams into that mix, and you got your maybe Big 12 is probably for sure getting only 1.
Yeah, they're only getting 1.
So
the only way they get 2 is like if Houston beats Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, or couldn't Houston? Are they playing BYU?
I don't know if Houston.
We have a Houston BYU game coming up. Otherwise, we could have Houston winning the Big 12 over an undefeated BYU team.
Oh yeah, Houston plays nobody. That's right. Houston plays West Virginia, UCF, TCU, and Baylor.
Oh, could you imagine Houston getting into this thing?
Yeah, nobody talking Willie Fritz, by the way. He's doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
But by the way, I think should be, and depending on how they end the season, shout out to Matt when we were talking about him about like coaches that should be out there. I think Brom should really be looked at depending on how well Louisville ends the season.
Yes.
I think in a world where we kind of look at offensive coaches, good, maybe quarterback developers and good game planners, schemers. I know he's coaching at his alma mater, but there's a coach to keep your eye on in the carousel. I think Brom could be a solid hire for somebody.
And lastly, just to wrap it up on the Big Ten perspective, best case scenario is either Oregon runs the table and they get 3 safely in, or gamble on USC winning against Oregon, USC running the table, Oregon being 10-2, USC's 10-2, and they get 4 in.
You know what would be the interesting thing, by the way, with USC, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say USC beats Oregon and then loses to Iowa.
Well, they're done.
Right. And then Oregon beats Iowa, and then that way you have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they would just all beat each other and cancel each other out.
Right. And then, but that wouldn't that create a world where you would only get 2 Big Ten teams in?
Right. The minimum is 2 for the Big Ten, and that's how they get the 2 in.
So, I mean, there is a world where that happens, Mark, and that'd be crazy to think before the season where you'd say only 2 Big Ten teams would make a 12-team playoff.
Yep.
How about you phrase it this way? The Big Ten gets as many playoff teams as the ACC.
Yeah.
That's down bad. Man, that's poverty.
Well, hey, now. Well, but we'll have the national champion for the third year in a row, so we're more than going to make up for
it. You got one program. You got one program that's elite, and everyone else is garbage.
I can make the case the 2 best teams in the country right now are both in the Big Ten, which I believe they are, in Ohio State and Indiana.
Yeah, and then you've got like the 10th best team, and then you've got like the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th best team, and then you've got like the 40th best team.
Yeah. Gosh, the demise of a couple of you're right. The middle is kind of what's hurting the Big Ten this year. I think we overrating Illinois and overrating Penn State has kind of hurt that middle to obviously a certain extent. Yeah.
And all the people giving Nebraska hype, and they turn out to be nothing.
Yeah, I thought at best I was kind of with Mark, but they're at best 7-5, 8-4. I thought Rule would do a little bit of a increase this year. Maybe next year would be a year where they could maybe take another step. But
no, I saw Josh Pate had them in the playoffs just because of how soft their schedule was, and I mean,
gosh, I used to like Josh Pate too. I'm kidding. I still like Josh Pate. He's no Mark Rogers, but who is?
I was actually, if we had the time, going to bring up a Joel Klatt tweet that went out today, but I guess we'll catch that on Thursday, that I thought was quite interesting, that Mr. Corey Braddis sent my way concerning Iowa not being ranked, but we'll look at that possibly on Thursday.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All right. Always a pleasure, Darrell. Good to see you, Mark.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Darrell.
Guys.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, folks. We are way over. So we do appreciate you stopping by here at the Voice of College Football. I'll be back Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll actually look at the slate of games on Thursday because we may have a decent one, but I highly doubt it because we never have a decent game on Thursday anymore, which means I'll be here at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll talk college football with all of you.